You see, everyone's career is influenced by something I call planned opportunism. And every one of you can think about your own personal careers. Big changes that fundamentally changes your career and your life is always a result of chance events. That's what I call opportunism. But how you respond to a chance event is anything but chance. That's the plan part. And planning is nothing more than embedding capabilities. Have the best education, have the best network, read a lot, make the nice friends. Planning is about really understanding who you are. What are your capabilities? What are your ambitions? What's your passion? What are your fears? What are your constraints? The more you understand yourself, then you are confident in taking risks on a chance event. Let me give you two instances which have shaped my career. I did my chartered accountancy in India, which is the equivalent of the CPA exam. And for the accounting exam, there used to be required texts and there were reference texts. And reference texts were not needed for the exam, but I always used to look at those reference texts. I must have read hundreds of them. Nothing really grabbed my attention. But there was one book by a very famous Harvard Business School professor, Bob Anthony, on accounting. And the very first sentence in that book said, accounting is not a technical subject. It influences human behavior. When I read that sentence, I said, wow, I thought accounting was boring. This guy is saying accounting has nothing to do with debits and credits. It's all about changing people's behavior. I remember that day, that chance event, I decided I must come to Harvard Business School and study underneath professors like this who think so differently. It fundamentally changed my trajectory of my life. The more recent fundamental change that happened in my life is joining General Electric as a professor in residence and chief innovation consultant. About 10 years ago, I was a keynote speaker in a conference where the chief learning officer of General Electric, Susan Peters, was also a speaker. And you know, when you come early, you listen to the previous speaker. And when I listened to Susan Peters, I said, what a brilliant way this company thinks about leadership. So at the end of her talk, I introduced myself to her and complimented her on how GE thinks about leadership. And she obviously asked me what I do and my work on 3 boxes and innovation, etc. So something I told her obviously stuck in her mind. About 5 years ago, Jeffrey Melt was on campus. And whenever such great people come on Dartmouth campus, I always make it a point to request half an hour time with them, just to see what I can learn from these big names. And I got half an hour time with Jeffrey Melt, and I had a long list of questions I asked him. At the end, he asked me, what is it that I'm working on? Then I told him, you know, my work is about 3 boxes and innovation and efficiency, etc. So something I said obviously clicked in his mind. And about 3 years ago, I wrote this book, 10 Rules for Strategic Innovators. So I wrote to Jeffrey Melt, saying, we met for half an hour at Dartmouth. You may or may not remember me, but I got this book. I would like an endorsement. I didn't expect a response. I thought his assistant would have probably junked that mail. I not only got a response, because you know Jeff gets so many millions of such requests. I not only got a response, but it was a handwritten response. And he said, I want to read the book, and if I like it, I'll give you an endorsement. And obviously, whatever I told him in that half an hour sort of aroused his interest enough that he wanted to read the book. Because my work, which is all about how do you do innovation in a company which is also has to worry about efficiency and performance, that is exactly the agenda Jeffrey Melt took upon himself in GE. So about 2.5 years ago, when Jeffrey Melt and Susan Peters were sitting down and saying, you know, we got a lot of smart people in GE, but it'll be always nice to bring an external perspective. Why don't we bring an academic to push our thinking on innovation? Somehow all the dots connected, and all those accidents and all those chance events led to this opportunity where I got a call from Susan Peters and said, we would like to invite you to come to GE as a chief innovation consultant. And I said, let me think about that for 2 nanoseconds. And that's a good illustration of this notion of life is always shaped by chance events and intentional choices. And planning is important, but planning doesn't mean you know how to predict the future. But it is only by embedding capabilities you can shape the trajectory of your future.